Donaldsonville and WD. Now, Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Holding down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Monday. Hope your week's off to an awesome start. Casey Gaines and Jacob Beck back there on the ones and twos. Glad to be back. A little time away over the weekend. Was out on Friday. Appreciate Taylor Sharp for holding it down. I popped in briefly from Disney World. Hopped into the Disneyland, I should say. Hopped in from the Bayou Ford chat. Checked in and then got back to standing in lines and riding really slow rides that 15-month-olds can go on. But it was a really fun time. I'll tell you about Dodger Stadium and kind of my thoughts on the game that I watched on Saturday night. Coming up at the end of hour number one. Get a full recap of the SEC weekend that was in baseball as well in hour one. Connor O'Gara is going to join us an hour from right now. He's with Saturday Down South. A couple of spring games in the SEC over the weekend, and Connor broke down A&M spring game as well as Arkansas spring game. So we'll talk to Connor about some SEC football at 2 o'clock. SEC basketball, some in, some out in the transfer portal. Jalen Hurts has got a record deal. So plenty to get to here on this Monday. Good to be back and appreciate y'all hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. We will start with LSU and Kentucky in baseball. Obviously, series started on Thursday night. I was flying and out on Friday. So you haven't heard from me on this entire series, and I want to kind of dive into the entirety of it. My biggest takeaway from this series is that this LSU team is really tough. They're just tough as nails. This is a team that is incredibly talented, has massive amounts of expectations on them, and has been dealt some adversity. Not as much in the loss category, but certainly in the injury category. They've had a lot of guys banged up. A lot of pitchers have gone down in the last week. Paxton Clee and Gavin Dugas have gone down with injuries. And they just keep responding. And Saturday was emblematic of that. When you get down late in the game and you're able to come back and get it done and win the game. Heck, Friday they got down and the pitching was having trouble getting outs. And the offense kept fighting and kept creating threats. And it just wasn't enough in the end. But they're tough, they're resilient, and they've proven that really over the last 2 weeks when you saw what they did to come back and win that second game against South Carolina and then to come win the series finale here against Kentucky. They're just really tough. And I think sometimes when this team wins, it's what's expected, so we don't maybe praise them to the level we should, and when they lose, we tend to kind of throw some alarms up. But they're tough as nails. And they proved that over the weekend. I said back on Thursday in my series preview that I thought that LSU, and I used my quote, would light up Kentucky's pitching staff like a freaking Christmas tree. That's what I said on Thursday, and I thought LSU would sweep the series because I thought Kentucky had no pitching, that LSU would light it up, and that walk, bunt, single type offense that Kentucky had would not be able to hold up, and LSU would dominate the series and sweep it. Half that I got right. LSU did light up Kentucky's pitching like a freaking Christmas tree. They scored 34 runs on 26 hits in 3 games. They hit 6 doubles. They clubbed 5 home runs. They, from start to finish, absolutely manhandled Kentucky's poor pitching staff. I don't care what the numbers say about Kentucky and what kind of runs they've allowed and where they rank in the SEC and all that. I watched their pitchers on tape. I watched them over the weekend. Their pitching stinks in terms of elite level baseball. It's not good. Not one guy came out there and I thought, man, that guy's got real stuff. Like Zach Lee's slider is okay. Everybody else they've got is not very good. And LSU crushed them all over the yard for 3 days. However, Kentucky's offense, which is not built like the modern offense, which is on-base percentage, slugging percentage, home runs, crooked numbers. That's the way modern offense is created, and Kentucky doesn't do that. And I thought that that LSU would expose that a little bit, and that did not happen. Kentucky hit the baseball really all weekend. I know that Paul Skeens had a big lead. LSU scores 6 in the first and 5 in the second. It's a bloodbath at that point. But they did get 7 hits off Skeens, and they scored 5 runs. And then they came out against Ty Floyd and hit the ball some more. In that game 2, Kentucky scored 13 runs on 14 hits. And then in game 3, Kentucky still hit. They scored 6 runs on 7 hits. They did a really good job of creating offense, and I did not think that would happen. However, I will give you the caveat that I did say very specifically that LSU has got to get the leadoff man out, and that way you neuter Kentucky's offense. Leadoff man's not on, you're not going to bring the bunt game out. You get ahead, they're not going to steal very much. And LSU did a very poor job of that. Kentucky got the leadoff man on 11 times, and 10 of those scored. The one that didn't score got thrown out stealing. But Kentucky did put the leadoff man on a lot over the course of the weekend, and they did score a lot of runs. So that was troubling. But LSU does win the weekend, and that's what they've been doing. College baseball is about winning weekends. And LSU has played difficult schedule. You've played in the latest D1 baseball poll that came out today. You've played number 5, number 6, and number 13. You have not lost a weekend. You got to put the caveat in there because you only played 2 games against South Carolina. But 5, 6, and 13 doesn't even include A&M and Tennessee, which are 2 talented baseball teams. And you continue to churn through and get it done. And that's awesome. Talk about some of the stuff on offense because I want to get to the pitching, big picture stuff in the next segment because there's a lot to dive into there. But LSU offensively was very good this weekend. And Dylan Cruz did not have a loud weekend with the bat in terms of huge swings. He did have a big RBI double, but it wasn't one of those weekends where he gets 8 hits, which happens all the time. In fact, this is a weekend where he drew 6 walks and was hit twice by pitches. And that was clearly a strategy by Kentucky not to let Cruz beat them. And what's going to happen, if that's a lot of teams thought, is that Tommy White's going to have to be a dude. And Tommy White is a Southeastern Conference Player of the Week this week. That's being a dude. Now, he did most of his damage outside of Cruz's walk. I went back and charted every one of Cruz's walks. On Thursday, they intentionally walked him, and White hit an RBI double, which is a great start. But then, on the 5 other walks, 2 of which were intentional, White struck out, grounded into 2 double plays, had an RBI ground out, and then was hit by a pitch. The last one was the hit by a pitch. And that's where I want to dive in because I will admit this. Up front, candidly, out in the open as I can be. I detest Nick Mingione, Kentucky's head coach. I've carried this grudge for 10 years, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. It's unreasonable. It's irrational. It just is because when you are a college baseball coach, which he was in 2013, coaching third base for Mississippi State, and you yell at Tyler Hanover 2-2-2 to try to keep him from throwing the ball home plate, you've lost me. You're Bush League, and you're not going to grow out of that. I do not like Nick Mingione at all because of that. One instance, one time, 10 years ago, haven't gotten over it. It is what it is. I don't like him. And so I'm more prone to criticize him when he makes a decision, and I'm here to analyze it. I thought intentionally walking Dylan Cruz with first and second and 2 out in a tie game was so dumb. So dumb. I know he's hitting 500. I got it. But the guy behind him leads the country in RBIs and is a very, very capable hitter who is just in the last 24 hours hit a ball 113 miles an hour off the batter's eye in center field. He's awesome. And you have now eliminated your pitcher's ability to nibble at the strike zone. He has to throw strikes. He walks him, you're going to lose the game. In fact, he hit him on the first pitch. But your pitcher's not good enough to load the bases. I get it's thinking outside the box and not going to let Cruz beat me and all that kind of stuff. You cannot intentionally walk the winning run to third base. Period. And he paid for it. You had a bad pitcher out there. He made a bad pitch, and you lose. So I hope he thought about that all the way back to Lexington. But I thought that was ludicrous to do that. But to the other point, like, Kentucky was impressive offensively, and that breaks my heart because I want them so badly to fail. But that style it worked. The only issue I had with him, and I tweeted this out, was on Saturday. They had the bases loaded in an 0-2 count, and their hitter is squaring around to bunt pre-pitch on an 0-2 count. Now, thankfully, he pulled the bat back and swung and missed, but that's T-ball stuff. I mean, that's coach pitch stuff. That's 10-year-old stuff. Waving the bat in front of home plate with 2 strikes. That's what 10-year-olds do. And Kentucky's out there doing that. But they got guys on. They stole. They put bunts down. They put pressure on LSU defense, and they scored runs. But LSU kept up with them offensively, and it was most of the usual suspects, Cruz, White, Jones, Joe Bear, but also Jordan Thompson with another home run. He had a home run in 4 straight games. Alex Milazzo was asked to catch all weekend and was productive offensively. He had a couple of hits. He drew 2 walks. He put down a sac bunt. That's 5 productive at-bats in 3 games. That's really all you can ask of Alex. And I thought he did a nice job and has proven like he can go out there and help this team. If Brady needed a weekend to reset and you needed Milazzo behind home plate to help throw base runners out, I thought Alex did a nice job. You look at this LSU team offensively, and you look at where they rank in the country. They're 4th in the country in batting average. They're 1st in the country in on-base percentage. Number 1 in the nation in on-base percentage. They're 9th in homers, 2nd in slugging, and 1st in runs per game. It's as good an offense as there is in college baseball. I believe it's the best offense in college baseball, and they showed that over the weekend. Now, we're about to get into pitching here in a second, but I'll tee up the pitching by starting with this. And I tweeted this stat out. LSU, in games where their opponents score 7 runs or less, is 29-0. 29-0 when they hold teams to 7 or less. You look at the games that LSU has lost this year. Iowa scored 12 runs on 16 hits. Texas A&M beat you in a game. They scored 4 runs in the 8th inning to take a lead. Against Arkansas, Skeens was brilliant for his time, and then you get to extras, and the bullpen gives up 8 runs in the 10th inning. Tennessee, in the one game they won at Alex Box Stadium, 14 runs on 17 hits in a game where your starter did not record an out. South Carolina, in the game they won, 13 runs on 4 homers. And then Kentucky scored 13 in the game they beat LSU. You hold your opponents under 8 runs, you're undefeated. That's all we're asking of this pitching staff. Hold them under 8, and we'll win. And that's where you get into the little bit of trepidation I have with this team. We'll talk about that next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
This is Hunt Palmer. Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
on Tuesdays, Off the Bench. One day closer to the LSU spring game. We'll continue to count you down. Plus, baseball getting ready for some midweek action, as well as a little more chill weekend series. Off the Bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
All right, if you're listening there at the end of that first segment, you heard the stat that LSU to this point is 29-0 when they hold their opponent under 8 runs. 29-0. So it just stands to reason that because this offense is number 1 in the country in runs per game and is as good as anybody in terms of on base and slugging, you just need the pitching staff to hold up their end of the bargain. And more often than not, they are. LSU's winning every weekend. So more often than not, they are holding up their end of the bargain. It's just not exactly what we thought it was going to look like back in January. You've had injuries. You've had guys that have struggled. And after Skeens, quite frankly, this is a very, very average pitching staff at this point. Skeens is not close to average. Skeens right now is blowing average out of the water. He has 104 strikeouts and 9 walks. He was great again on Thursday. He struck out 13 more, only walked 1, and got through 6 innings in a game where LSU had total control from the first inning on. But it's after Skeens where LSU's going to have to, at some point, find 3 or 4 guys they can really trust week in and week out. I've got one that I feel great about. Bryce Collins is now a dude. In his last 6 outings, he's thrown 9 scoreless innings, 13 strikeouts, 6 walks. Now, I'd like a little fewer than 6 walks, but I haven't gotten a sense that the command has been a real issue since his first 2 or 3 outings of the year. He is now LSU's highest leverage reliever. He's the guy who's going to get outs late in games. He's going to assume the role that Garrett Edwards had for a month and a half. I am confident with Bryce Collins. I thought for weeks that there was a chance that he could be on the come. He is. He was great in the fall. He was good preseason. He got out there and the season started and couldn't throw it over the plate. He is now. The 12-6er's nasty. He's throwing 94 miles an hour. He's going to be fine. He's one guy I can trust. I got to find 2 or 3 more guys I can trust starting and in relief. It starts with Ty Floyd, who right now, quite frankly, is a little bit below average as an SEC starter. He's an SEC starter, but he's a little bit below average. It's just what the numbers tell you. He has not been great in an SEC game apart from Arkansas after the first inning, where he got off to a really slow start, gave up some hits, gave up a couple runs, and then settled in and was able to start getting deep into the game. But outside of that, it's been a little below average, quite frankly. I mean, look at the statistics. Against A&M, he goes 3 1/3 and gives up 5 runs. Against Tennessee, 5 innings, 6 hits, 4 runs. Against South Carolina, 3 innings. He only gave up 1 hit, but he gave up 4 runs because he walked 4 guys in the 3 innings. And then against Kentucky, 4 2/3, 6 hits, 5 runs, 3 of them are earned. I realize that a couple score there when Jobert overruns the ball, whatever. But Floyd is just okay. He's got to step it up. He can be better than he is right now. Christian Little goes out there and starts, and he looked really good early. He gets through those 3 innings, looks really good doing it, and then the wheels come off there in the 4th, and he walks 3 guys. Now, that's to be expected for a guy that's been basically a 1 to 2 inning reliever for you. You got to stretch him out, and he threw 45 pitches, and if he's going to be a starter for you, you'd like to get that number up closer to 90, and you do that gradually. He's got a chance, but right now, he's not the guy. Well, he's not a guy. He can get there. It was a good start yesterday on Saturday. That was a good start. We just got to see more. Griffin Herring, I've got really high hopes for. He was great his first couple of times out. That Tennessee game was really a springboard for him, really a confidence booster for him to slam the door on the Vols like that in a 2-run game with the tying run at the plate when he gets the last punch out. But he got hit around a little bit for the first time this weekend. He fills in for Floyd. I know he's on the mound when Jobert overruns the ball. we could talk about that if you want, but he did get hit. In an inning and 2/3, he gave up 6 hits. A lot of line drives back up the middle. It's to be expected for a freshman to get hit a little bit, but he's still got a ways to go. Would I call him a certainly reliable guy right now? Not quite. So you look elsewhere. Gavin Guidry has kind of emerged a little bit for this team, but he lost his command a little bit. He issued 3 walks, threw a wild pitch. He's still learning. He's only been out there a couple of times. Thatcher Hurd's a guy we had really high hopes for, and Jay continues to say in the postgame that this is a guy that is really close. The numbers might not back it up, but he's really close to getting it figured out. He goes an inning and a third, gave up 3 hits and 3 runs. All of them were earned. He had a walk and a strikeout. You don't need everything from these guys. You have your ace, and you have a guy who's a stopper now. Those are 2. You've got to have 4 guys to kind of fill this thing out. I don't need 11 A-plus pitchers to go win a championship. That's not necessary. If you were listening last week when we had Joe Healy on, he went back and looked up pitching staffs from teams that made deep runs over the years, and it's more often kind of a team that's got an ace, got a couple of bullpen guys, and a second starter who can get you 5 or 6 innings of 2 or 3 run ball. I'm not asking for the moon here, but you just got to find a little bit more. And at the beginning of the season, I'm looking at LSU staff and I'm going, okay, I need 3 weekend starters. I've got a list comprised of Paul Skeens, Grant Taylor, Ty Floyd, Thatcher Hurd, Christian Little. That's 5 guys kind of fighting for this deal. And now you look up, and the only guy who's taken the baton and run is Skeens. Everybody else is kind of, okay, that's a decent there. That's okay there. It just hadn't really clicked for anybody. And your offense is so good that you don't have to dominate. I'm not asking you to shut teams out. But it's just a little bit uneven. And so when I look up and a team in Kentucky that doesn't really slug shows up and they score 6 runs in the Saturday game, score 13 in the Friday game, they score 6 in the Thursday game, like, you're asking a lot from your offense. And they'll deliver more often than not, and they have, because LSU wins every weekend. But you're just not quite there. Today, you got updates on a couple of guys from Jay Johnson. He said Javen Coleman is close to pitching. He warmed up twice this weekend, so I would think we would see him this week at some point. Said Nate Ackenhausen's close, dealing with that hamstring injury. But that's 2 guys that you can toss into this mix where you've got to find some combination of 3 or 4 guys in Guidry, Cooper, Hurd, Herring, Ackenhausen, Coleman, that can get you to the finish line. You got a great starting point with Skeens, but you're not quite there. And yes, LSU's defense has let them down a little bit of late. They've made an error in 8 of their last 9 games, at least one, after being so clean early. Joe Baird wasn't charged with an error, but he makes one down the right field line. You all know what I'm talking about with the bases loaded. And that is just going to happen when you've got some of these guys out here who are really good offensive players that aren't as good on defense. You just hope that defensively, and I talked about this a lot last year, you hope that error comes with 1 or 2 out and nobody on base. You hope it doesn't come with the bases loaded and you give up 3 runs. It's just kind of part of the game. You don't get to decide when you make a physical error. Those things happen. Now, the mental error Joe Bear made when he ran into a tag at third base was tough to look at on Friday. But the physical ones are going to happen. And that's let LSU down a little bit in terms of their pitching. But you've still got enough guys. It's crazy to think with 7 pitching injuries to this point that you still got enough guys. But frankly, this LSU staff, past Skeens, is very average, and you kind of hold your breath with every single arm they put in the game. I'm getting past that with Collins. After that, you're kind of, we'll see. But the fact of the matter is that right now you look up and you have played half your SEC schedule. You are 9-4 against as good a run as anybody has played. And there are some other teams in the SEC that have played a gauntlet like this. But you're now looking at a back half of the schedule that has Ole Miss, that has Alabama, that has Mississippi State, that has Georgia. Like, you've got some games in front of you, and the roadmap to a national seed, which is all we're doing here. All the regular season is a roadmap to a national seed. Then you throw the dice and you go play. But that roadmap to a national seed is very defined. Like, it's there. You've got 5 series in the rearview mirror. You have not been beaten. You've played some really good teams, 3 of them in the top 15. Time to go and take care of the softer part of your schedule. Starts with Ole Miss next weekend. And let me just tell you, we're about to get into the SEC here in the next segment. That's going to be a desperate team. But you got to go over there and you got to take care of business. And it is comforting, as much as I'm talking about the pitching. It is comforting to know when you go out there for game 1 in Oxford, packed house, Friday night, you're going to give the ball to Paul Skeens. Gives you a pretty good start. So, Tigers take care of Kentucky. They do win 2 out of 3. That's the job. I would have liked to sweep there, but you win 2 out of 3, and you're 9-5 at the break. And you got a real shot to get this thing moving in the right direction in the second half and kind of springboard you into the postseason. So that's a look at LSU and Kentucky over the weekend. We'll take a timeout when we come back. I've got some storylines from the Southeastern Conference. That's next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
LWCC is Louisiana loyal. They're elevating and celebrating champions of Louisiana. In April, we're telling you about Dr. Robert Jackson. I love telling you about Dr. Robert Jackson because he's a North Louisiana guy. I'm a North Louisiana guy. And he has done so much for his community up in North Louisiana. He founded the MLK Health Center and Pharmacy in Shreveport. The clinic provides over $16 million in services to over 1,700 patients each and every year. Clinics like the MLK Health Center and Pharmacy are essential to a state like Louisiana that's got one of the highest uninsured rates in the country. And the clinic operates at no expense to the patient and returns an average of $25 to the community for every $1 invested in the center. Dr. Robert Jackson, certainly a champion of Louisiana. LWCC is Louisiana loyal.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Tannegrove, join us for the Tuesday edition of Handy Time. Dwayne Colucci joins us from Las Vegas. The NBA playoffs continue and the NHL playoffs are underway. Handy Time, noon weekdays, 104.5, ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South going to join us in 30 minutes talking some SEC football, a couple spring games in the rearview mirror that Connor wrote about over at Saturday Down South, one over in College Station with the Aggies, and, of course, up in Fayetteville with the Hogs. So we'll talk SEC football with Connor coming up in 30 minutes. I want to go around the SEC quickly with what happened over the weekend in baseball. And I want to start in Starkville. Super Bulldog Weekend, the largest crowd in the history of college baseball. They're absolutely slammed to watch two pretty poor baseball teams go at it. But if you weren't aware, the two schools don't like each other very much. So packed house there in Starkville. Mississippi State takes 2 out of 3 from Ole Miss. It was a really competitive weekend. There were 2 one-run games and a 2-run game. 2 two-run games and a 1-run game. It was really competitive stuff. Ole Miss scores 2 to go up 7-6 in the 9th inning of Game 2, looking to take the series, and then they issue a leadoff walk, give up a 2-spot. State walks them off and then wins the game on Sunday to win 2 out of 3 in the series. That lost series drops Ole Miss down to 3-12 in SEC play. So you got to get to 13 to get into the NCAA tournament. So Ole Miss is going to have to finish 10-5 to get into the NCAA tournament. That's the team LSU plays next, and we'll get into it on Friday. That is going to be a desperate baseball team when LSU goes there. Their fans will know it. They will know it. I think Hunter Elliott is going to come back this weekend against LSU. He's not going to be the Friday night guy and go 7 shutout innings. You're probably going to see him for 35, 40 pitches. But I think they're going to get Hunter Elliott back, and they've got to win this weekend. If you'll remember, last year, Ole Miss turned their season around at Alex Box Stadium with a sweep. They found Dylan DeLucia, they found Hunter Elliott, and they rode those two to a national championship. It all started against LSU. They'll be thinking the same way this weekend, but they are 3-12. They're going to have to win the rest of their series, basically, to get into the NCAA tournament. So Mississippi State's won a couple of weekends in a row. I still don't think they are great, but they have won a couple of weekends in a row. State is now 5-10 in league play. The loudest statement made this weekend in the Southeastern Conference was Arkansas sweeping Tennessee and really stymieing the Vols bats start to finish this weekend. Tennessee scored 7 runs in 3 games. Hunter Holland was awesome. Hagen Smith came out of the bullpen again and was nasty. And Tennessee couldn't swing the bats. This is a team that's still got a lot of talented dudes. Blake Burke, Maui Ahuna. These guys are good. And they're not swinging the bats. They're not winning games. Tennessee's 5-10 in the league. Swept by Missouri. Lose 2 out of 3 to LSU. Swept by Arkansas. They just haven't gotten – and they're just playing bad baseball. If you go back and look at the highlights from the weekend – they're winning a game, and then they can't complete a simple toss to first base to get out of an inning. They allow a run to score on that, and then a home run next swing. They're just sloppy. They get thrown out on the bases more than anybody in the league. And then they jumbled up their entire weekend rotation. If you were listening last week, I told you that that I'm now totally blanked on Tony Vitello's name. Whoa. Tony Vitello announced his weekend rotation, no Dollander, no Burns, no Beam. So those guys, they haven't earned it. Now, what we thought was going to happen did, and Dollander started game 2, and Beam started game 3. They moved Burns to the bullpen. But you don't score any runs, you're not going to win much. Beam got lit up. He allowed 6 earned runs in an inning and 2/3. So there's nothing clicking on Rocky Top right now. And Arkansas is rolling. They're 11-4 in league play. They're good. Vandy beats South Carolina 2 out of 3 in a really competitive weekend series. Carter Holton and Devin Futrell were the 2 winning pitchers for Vanderbilt in those games. South Carolina still did score. That's kind of their MO. They're going to score, but Vanderbilt's offense kept up. They scored enough and got a nice series win. Now you look up, and Vanderbilt at the turn is 13-2 in league play. They are probably your favorites to win the Southeastern Conference at this point. They still got work to do, but at this point, they've got to be your favorites because they've already played South Carolina, but they do have some stuff coming up that is going to be tricky. They got a trip to Tennessee, which the Vols are going to be pretty desperate in that one, and that's an interstate rivalry. Then they got Kentucky coming up. They play Alabama, which should be one that they can take control of. Then they finish with Florida and Arkansas. So we'll see, but 13-2 is loud. That's 13-2. A&M beats Missouri 2 out of 3. Here's the deal with A&M. They still, at this point in the season, do not have a weekend rotation. They throw Nathan Detmer out there, and then they've been shifting around the last 2 starters for 3 weeks now. And their games 2 and 3 starters in this weekend win a total of 2 2/3. They still won 2 out of 3, but they're getting nothing pitching-wise from Detmer, after Detmer. That team is just not great. I watched them play a lot in February, and then obviously LSU went there, and we watched them in that weekend, and it stings that LSU let them off the hook in Game 3 there, walked some guys, and gave up that 2 spot late because that's one that LSU could have swept on the road. Didn't quite get it done. Florida beats Georgia 2 out of 3. How did Georgia get a game off Florida? How'd they do that? Well, I'll tell you how they did it. Charlie Condon of Georgia hit 3 homers in the first game of that series, including a grand slam, and Georgia beat him 13-11. Have a day, Charlie Condon. The drama coming out of Florida and Georgia over the weekend, you've probably seen this on Twitter, was Brandon Neely got ejected after celebrating a strikeout. He flips a breaking ball in there, gets really excited, fired up, yells at the hitter, and they threw him out of the game, which I think is stupid, but it is what it is. And then Jack Caglione hits his 413th home run of the season, and instead of, kind of yucking it up with his teammates or gloating or doing anything, he very obviously and deliberately held his hands right down by his side, marched around, showed no facial expression. It was kind of showing up the umpire in a way that you could do it and get away with. Look, I thought it was stupid to throw the kid out of the game, and I thought it was funny what Caglione did. Either way, Florida beats Georgia 2 out of 3. The Dogs do get one, but Georgia sits here at the midway point at 4-11. Florida is now 11-4. And then the last SEC series was Alabama and Auburn. Bama wins 2 out of 3 against Auburn in a series they probably needed. So Bama now 6-9 in Southeastern Conference play. Auburn, as we look up here at the midway point, is looking at a 5-10 record. So at this point in the schedule, LSU, by percentage points and win percentage, is in 6th place. In the West, Arkansas is ahead of them at 11-4. And then in the East, you've got 4 teams with a better record than 9-5. You got Vanderbilt at 13-2, Florida at 11-4, and then Kentucky at 10-5, South Carolina at 10-4. LSU sitting there at 9-5 is in 6th place in the SEC. They're ranked 1st in the country. They're 6th in the SEC. That's a product of their schedule. I still think LSU's in a really, really good spot, but it's kind of jarring to look at the standings and go, 6th place? How's that possible? But that's what the schedule has done to this LSU team. So LSU's in a good spot. I think at the midway point, you would take where they are. They're not playing complete enough baseball to sweep series. They're letting teams off the hook with one here and there. Bad start, bullpen collapses. That's the way it's gone. But they're in a pretty good spot here at the midway point. Just got to take care of business against some of the lesser teams in the West, which is really, really bad. And hopefully some of these teams above them, the schedule beefs up for them and they drop some games, and LSU is in good shape. I'll talk a little bit more about LSU baseball in the second hour. Jay Johnson updated a few injuries. Gavin Dugas is taking ground balls today. Going to have to play through a little bit of pain. Paxton Kling's on the shelf. So is Nate Ackenhausen, but we'll talk a little bit more about that in hour number 2. Connor O'Gara is going to join us here at the top of hour number 2. It's straight up 2 o'clock. Talk a little SEC football. We've got to talk about Jalen Hurts' deal, as that was a blockbuster that hit this morning. When we come back, I'm just going to shift gears just a touch. As y'all know, I was out in Los Angeles over the weekend. Not going to give you all a Disneyland recap because I don't think anybody really cares, but there's a sports angle to my trip. I went out to Dodger Stadium and saw it for the first time and took in a heck of a ball game on Saturday. So gives you some of my thoughts on one of the most historic parks in all of baseball coming up next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Not happy with your living situation currently, but it's just not a great time to move? Well, that is not a great spot, but we can help you with it. With One Bath and Closets, how much different would your living situation feel if you've got a fully renovated bathroom? One Bath and Closets is your only call. You don't have to call an electrician and a floor guy and a plumber and somebody to put in a shower. You don't have to call 6 contractors. You call one. One Bath and Closets, David Duvall and his team, been in the game for 30 years. They can do a full-scale renovation of your bathroom or maybe something simple like a tub-to-shower conversion. If you don't use that tub that's in your bathroom right now, pull it out, put it in a gorgeous walk-in glass shower. Totally changes the functionality of your bathroom as well as the aesthetic. And they'll help you with your closet as well. You deserve a closet that's customized to your wardrobe and your needs. They can help you with shelves, racks, mirrors, drawers. All that can be done over at One Bath and Closets. And I promise you this. You call David Duvall and his team at One Bath and Closets, they're not going to cut some corners, get the job done, leave, and then have things fall apart 3 weeks later. They're going to do it right the first time and leave the competition behind. Check out all their work, all the testimonials, and request a free consultation at onebathandclosets.com.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Monday's AFR, presented by Relief Windows. We'll recap the LSU Kentucky baseball series from the box and the football Tigers practice from over the weekend. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Checking out the Bayou Ford chat here. Nookie asks, how did Myers do on the plane? That was a huge concern of mine. We're dealing with a 15-month-old child who just started walking, so that's all he wants to do, who is not interested in any sort of television or iPad viewing at all, will not stare at anything at all, and is not really entertained by anything other than walking around and getting to the next thing. And you got to sit still with no seat for 3.5 hours. Thankfully, we sat next to a girl that looked to be in her early 20s who had no interest in Myers whatsoever and immediately moved when we showed up. So we had an extra seat on our on the way out there at an 8 o'clock p.m. flight. He slept sprawled across both of us for 4 hours, which was great. And yesterday I was terrified for a noon flight out of L.A., and he was a champ. Fell asleep for about 45 minutes, ate some snacks. I mean, our seats looked like a war zone when we got up and landed in New Orleans. There were crumbs everywhere, but we got through it, so he was a champ. Thanks for asking, Nookie. It went a lot better than I thought it was going to go. But I want to talk about my trip out to Dodger Stadium. It was my first experience at Dodger Stadium. I'm obviously a huge baseball fan and had never been out to see a game there. The Cubs were in town, so we went and saw the Cubbies and Dodgers on Saturday night. And the first thing I noticed when I'm driving out there is that when you go to a Dodgers game out in Chavez Ravine, that's all that's there. We drove, from the place we were staying in Manhattan Beach through downtown, saw USC's campus right there off the interstate, and drove out to Chavez Ravine. And Dodger Stadium's all that's out there. There's no bar, restaurant area right around there. Like, you drive your car out there, park in the parking lot, and you're at Dodger Stadium, and that's all that's there. So in that way, it's very, very much unlike your downtown stadiums like Minute Maid, where the Astros play, that I think a lot of you have probably been, Coors Fields downtown in Denver that maybe some of you have been to, or like Wrigley, which has got Wrigleyville, which is not, most places don't have anything like Wrigleyville, but Fenway's kind of like that, where there's just a lot going on around the ballpark. Dodger Stadium does not have that. You show up and you're at Dodger Stadium. Second thing that I immediately noticed, and that I realized, watching on TV all these years, Dodger Stadium is huge. It is massive. Just a big, big ballpark. Dwarfs Wrigley. And the other thing you notice immediately is just how scenic it is. You've got the mountains there in the background. You're built down into a ravine, so you've got this gorgeous hillside around. The scenery is unbelievable. And then beyond that, it's old. It looks old. It feels old. The seat I was in was kind of like broken a little bit. Like, it's an old ballpark. And in that way, it's not a real comfortable viewing experience. It's gorgeous, but it's not super comfortable. So in summation, if you told me I had to go watch the Cubs play a baseball game, you can either watch it at Dodger Stadium or you can watch it at Minute Maid. I'm watching at Minute Maid. There's better food options. The scoreboard is better and more detailed. It's just modernized. It's just a little bit nicer. Like PNC Park in Pittsburgh, to me, the viewing experience blows Dodger Stadium out of the water. I'm thrilled I went, and it's impressive, and it's got a ton of history, which means a lot to me. Doesn't mean anything to my wife, but we went to Wrigley last summer. We went to Dodger Stadium this weekend. She said Wrigley was 1,000 times better. Now, I'm biased in that way because I love the Cubs. She doesn't care. She's just there to eat a hot dog, drink a beer, and watch the game. And Dodger Stadium is, if you're going to go there, it's for the history and the beauty around it, not necessarily to me for the comfortability or the viewing experience, which I thought was a little bit dated, quite frankly. Here's another thing that I have not realized at Alec Box, and some of you in the Bayou Ford chat or on Twitter can talk to this if you've been to the box this year. I haven't noticed this, but it was very obvious at Dodger Stadium where there's 45,000 people instead of 8. My wife got up to go get me a beer, her a beer, and then nachos and a hot dog and use the restroom. She got up to go get some food and use the restroom. She missed 2 entire innings. Now, she doesn't care at all because she doesn't care who wins or loses the game. But she missed 2 innings. And that quick pitch clock deal that keeps everybody engaged and is great for the television viewer and it's shortening the games and all that kind of stuff, the side effect of this is these are crowded ballparks, and it takes some time to get through the line to get concessions. She missed 2 full innings. And everybody in that stadium, I've been looking at the secondary market for tickets to this game on Saturday for 3 months. Everybody in there is paying 3 figures a ticket or more, but everybody in there is paying 3 figures a ticket. And to miss 2 full innings to go get 2 beers and some food, that is a bit of an issue. We're going to have to streamline this concession thing at some point because you can't have that. Last thing was on the game itself. So we sit down and watching the game. It's Cubs-Dodgers. Cubs are off to a nice start. They had won the game on Friday. And Jameson Taillon's pitching for the Cubs. He's throwing great. And the Dodgers are throwing this guy, Grove, I've never heard of. I watch a lot of baseball. I've never heard of Grove. It's a second rounder out of West Virginia. And they're dueling, they're dealing, and Patrick Wisdom hits a homer in the 5th to give the Cubs a 1-0 lead, which they hold on to into the 9th inning. It's 1-0 going to the 9th. The Cubs load the bases with 1 out in the 9th and can't add an insurance run. And then, of course, the Dodgers, with 2 outs in the 9th, hit a walk-off 2-run single to walk the Cubs off. I am just devastated. I've got my hat in my face. Cannot believe I've sat here for 3 hours. The Cubs are winning this game all the way. Beers are cold. Everything's wonderful. And then in the last second, with 2 outs in the 9th, the Dodgers hit a 2-run single to right field to win the game. And I'm just so distraught. And this Dodger fan, trying to be a nice guy, I guess, comes over, taps me on the shoulder repeatedly as my head is still in my hat, and is like, dude, don't worry about it. Great game, great game. I don't want to hear great game. It's not a great game. The game sucks. We just lost. I guess he's trying to be nice. I don't want to hear it. Don't come tap me on the shoulder and tell me great game. I kind of nodded my head and basically gave him a look like, thanks. I wasn't rude, but I just like, yeah, thanks. Like, you got a great team. Y'all are going to be great. I was like, I don't want to hear that. I just flew all the way out here. Been wanting to come to this game for months. Cubs are playing pretty well. We've got a chance to win it. With two outs in the 9th inning, we give up a 2-run single. For the first runs the Dodgers scored all day, and this guy's trying to console me. I did not need that. So just cocktail party, be nice to people. At a game, leave me alone. That's it for our number 1 here on this Monday. Hope your work week's off to a good start. We'll come back in hour number 2 with some LSU basketball transfer portal news at 2:15. We'll talk a little Jalen Hurts contract, but after Sports Center, to kick off hour number 2, Connor O'Gara of Saturday Down South talking SEC football spring games. That's next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
Hi, I'm Brandon Landry, founder and CEO of Water.
Hi, my name is Dr. Craig Green.
This is Ryan Terrio with HUDCoRoofing.com.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. No matter how big your commercial roofing job, HUDCO can help.
My patients come to me because they trust that I can get the job done at a high level. Ryan Terrio and Richard Tilley have the same level of trust when it comes to roofing.
If you have a roofing issue, call HUDCO Roofing.
Give us a call, 364-1007, and we'll come to your house and give you a free inspection.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all of that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. Jalen Hurts will be in Philadelphia for years to come. ESPN's Adam Schefter reports the Eagles and their franchise quarterback agreed on a 5-year, $255 million extension, $179 million guaranteed, and a no-trade clause, the first in Eagles franchise history. It is amazing how much the narrative surrounding Hurts has changed in a year, notes ESPN NFL reporter Kimberly Martin.
Last year we were asking, can Jalen Hurts actually be the guy? He's got the intangibles. He's a great leader, but we know that his game needs to improve. But can he be not just a franchise guy, but a guy that can deliver a Super Bowl? Well, guess what? He outplayed Patrick Mahomes in that Super Bowl. He got the Eagles to the Super Bowl, and he deserves every single bit of that contract.
Kimberly A. Martin on First Take. The quest for Lord Stanley's Cup starts tonight among the doubleheader playoff matchups on the ESPN family of networks. The best player in the world, Connor McDavid, leads the Oilers against the Kings, 10 Eastern ESPN TV. Boston Marathon defending champ Evans Chebet of Kenya won the men's race. Helen Obiri of Kenya was the women's winner.
Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. They're close, convenient, and have the parts you need fast, along with excellent customer service from professional parts people you can trust. Stop by your local O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
Now, Hunt Palmer. Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Holding down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour number 2, Hunt Palmer Show on a Monday at 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Hour 2's off to a good start here because we're going to chat with Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South. He joins us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Connor, thanks for the time. How are you?
Hey, good to be here. It was an eventful Saturday, watching a bunch of spring football, trying not to overreact. But, yeah, life is good. It's nice to be at a place where we can at least talk about some somewhat actual football.
No, there's no question. Everyone just loves talking football all the time. I start diving into the number 1 ranked baseball team in the country, and somebody inevitably will jump in our chat and go, can we talk about some football now? It never dies down here in the South, and you do a great job of covering. I was perusing the interwebs this morning and looking at your takeaways from Saturday's spring games, and there were a bunch of them throughout the Southeastern Conference, and you obviously, like you just said I try not to overreact. But what fun would this be if we didn't overreact? So let's take it around the Southeastern Conference. And your first blurb in this story over at Saturday Down South is talking about KJ Jefferson and Will Rogers adjusting to new offenses. We've seen these two guys for a couple of years in Southeastern Conference play, and we understand their identity, but it's going to change a little bit. Let's start with Will Rogers and kind of adjusting to what will be a new system for him in his final year in Starkville.
Yeah, Kevin Barbay, the offense that he's going to bring in coming from App State, he's going to be operating a little bit more out of the pistol. They're going to have Will Rogers doing things that we're not used to seeing at Mississippi State. I mean, they have a tight end on the roster for the first time since 2019. It is going to look different than what we've come to expect with Mike Leach in the air raid offense. And I think Will Rogers, somebody that's thrown over 1,600 attempts in his college career, is going to have a very different set of surroundings to be able to work with. And I think that's going to be some good and some bad. Their running backs look like they were surprised to get the football. They were struggling with some exchanges just on basic handoffs. So that's going to be a learning curve there. But, Rogers is going to be one of those guys, along with KJ Jefferson, who will be in that conversation with Jaden Daniels to be the number one quarterback in the SEC coming back this year. And I think that's something that you have to take into account is what's it going to look like with this new offense, because the Mike Leach air raid, it is one of one, but perhaps that could benefit Will Rogers at this stage of his career.
Is it a bigger adjustment for Will Rogers in handling a new offense that kind of operates differently, or different for the offensive lineman? We know that Mike Leach likes to recruit those lean offensive linemen, wide splits. Is there going to be an adjustment for the front for this Mississippi State offense?
I would think so. I mean, I would think it's going to benefit them. Like, think about being an offensive tackle, and every single time that defensive end is going to be pinning his ears back, and I'm going to have to make that first step really quick. It's why I give Charles Cross a lot of credit, because if you kind of look at the way that they were operating under Leach, they were seeing some of these defenses that knew exactly what they were doing, and if you could pressure Mississippi State with 3, forget about it. You just played drop 8 coverage against them, and that was all she wrote. But yeah, I think it should benefit those guys up front. I mean, offensive linemen, last I checked, they don't like just pass blocking the entire time. It's like having a center on basketball. You're like, hey, you're just going to set screens for 40 minutes here and see how much that guy likes his life. It's a little bit different, I think, with Kevin Barbay as opposed to Mike Leach.
Kendall Briles moves on from Arkansas. They bring in Dan Enos again to run the offense in Fayetteville. What's the biggest change going to be with Dan Enos' system?
KJ Jefferson is going to be operating under center, which is weird. And he said he's already liking operating under center more than shotgun. If you think about, how do quarterbacks say that at this stage of his career? Somebody that's had a lot of success in the SEC. Think about all of those hits that you take as a quarterback on the zone read, wherein you're not even the primary ball carrier, and you're still getting hit because, hey, you're live. And that is not necessarily something he's going to have to worry about as much with some of those looks that they're going to try and incorporate under center. So they're still going to have your RPOs. They're still going to have the zone reads in that offense. But I think KJ is going to like that. I think he's going to like the fact that he doesn't have to operate at this warp speed. He can kind of react to the defense and what they're doing instead of the other way around. And I think at this stage of his career, it should really benefit him a lot. I am a KJ Jefferson believer through and through. I think he's the best quarterback in the SEC coming back. And I think Dan Enos, after what I've seen him do with Jalen Hurts in 2018, people forget about that, what he was doing as a backup at Alabama, and then what he was able to do with Talia Tagovailoa at Maryland. I think Dan Enos was such a great hire, one of the best hires in the SEC this offseason.
Do you think KJ Jefferson's running load takes a little bit of a step back in this coming season?
Yeah, it better. It's not sustainable. It's just not. I mean, with the amount of contact that guy takes on at 6'3", 250, you have to find a more sustainable offense, because when he's not healthy, they're not very good. I mean, they're just not. That was the case last year. Like, you could point almost directly at their struggles when they would play down to this competition, and it was either KJ being out or KJ not being close to 100%. And you need to be able to find ways to incorporate your best player, which is Rocket Sanders as well, and not have all of these loaded boxes. So how do you do that? Well, you show that you can stretch the field a little bit. They're going to try and do that more. They have questions at receiver just like they did last year, but I think that KJ is capable of taking that next step. He got better as a passer last year. Even though the cumulative numbers were virtually identical to the year before, he did that in less games. So they're really high on what he's going to be able to do in this offense, and I think it was a really smart move by Sam Pittman to bring in Dan Enos.
Yeah, LSU got Arkansas without KJ Jefferson last year, and they could have been out there a month and they wouldn't have scored 20 points. It was a really poor offense, sans KJ. Let's talk about Ole Miss's quarterback situation. That may be the most fascinating one in the Southeastern Conference. Where do you stand at the close of spring there in Oxford?
I really like Spencer Sanders. I think there are a lot of Ole Miss fans who are looking at this situation going, well, what do you mean? Jackson Dart, he was never benched. Matt Corral didn't really take off until year 2 in Lane Kiffin's offense. You guys are overreacting to this. We don't need to make a big deal of it. And I'm thinking to myself, like, Spencer Sanders was like a 4-year starter at Oklahoma State. This is a former New Year's Six Bowl MVP. He's got over 1,500. He's got like over 500 rushing attempts in his career. He's a dual threat guy who's had a lot of success. And he comes into this situation with a shoulder injury that he's still working through. So in the spring, everybody's saying, this is Jackson Dart. This is his job to lose. But we've seen the spring game, Spencer Sanders look really good. And it's kind of a reminder of, like, this guy's been around the block. And for me, it's just going to be about whether or not he can master this offense in year 1. Because there's this assumption that while Lane Kiffin makes life easier on his quarterbacks, there's an assumption that his offense is easy to master. And that's just not the case at all, especially at the speed that they want to operate at. But if Spencer Sanders can do that, I think he's got a really good chance of being the guy, despite the fact that Jackson Dart has made those improvements, and all reports indicate that a fire has been lit under him this offseason. But I'm still pretty bullish on Spencer Sanders and not as high on Jackson Dart.
Let's talk Texas A&M. Maybe the most important hire of the offseason was Jimbo having to go out and find somebody to help him score some more points, and Bobby Petrino was the man he tabbed to do so. It is a spring game. They're not going to show much of anything, but were you able to take anything away from the first portion of the Petrino era in the College Station?
They ran more pre-snap motion, which that's good. You need that. Last I checked, that's a positive. LSU saw that up close of what that actually looks like when A&M runs with pre-snap motion and tempo and these things that, for whatever reason, they only do for the big boys like Alabama and LSU, and they struggle against everybody else. But, yeah, it is going to be a different offense as long as Bobby Petrino gets to run it. That is a major if. If Jimbo Fisher can truly relinquish control of that offense, keep his hands off of play calling duties, at least that primary decision, that's going to be huge. And I do think that Bobby Petrino should be able to help that offense. The pieces in place there at A&M, man, they should be the most improved team in the SEC. They are highest in the SEC in percentage of returning production. That's that Bill Connolly puts together every year. They're 7th nationally. Connor Wigman's a stud. They have their top 3 receivers returning, bunch of production returning on the offensive line as well. Like, this should be a better offense. That's not saying a whole lot after how bad they were, but I think it's all about Petrino and Jimbo. If those egos can mesh, that's going to be the key to everything.
Do you think it will?
Short term, yes. Long term, I have my doubts.
Okay.
What's it going to look like if Petrino runs an offense that for like 2 or 3 weeks in a row, it can't get to 28 points? And the irony is that Jimbo struggled to do that against FBS competition for 2 years straight.
Yeah.
And what's Jimbo going to do in a spot like that? Are they going to be going back and forth? I think it's going to be great theater either way.
Sure is. Connor O'Gara is our guest from Saturday Down South, walking through some spring games from the weekend that was in the Southeastern Conference. LSU, of course, will play their spring game coming up this coming Saturday. Curious to see how this Tennessee offense functions post-Hendon Hooker. What'd you see from Joe Milton and company over the weekend?
Yeah, Joe Milton, Nico Iamaleava crushed the pronunciation. No big deal. They're going to be fun. I do think that, despite the fact that I didn't have any Joe Milton shares to begin with, and any shares I might have had, I think I sold a couple years ago. But he's made some improvements. Like, we know all the physical abilities. The guy can throw a football like very few human beings on planet Earth. That much I know to be true. But it's always been a question about can he master the offense and can he actually have that touch? Because it doesn't do you a whole lot of good to have an arm like that if you can't complete a pass over 20 yards. I mean, that's the key with him. And I think he's looked better, and he looked really like the guy that we saw in the Orange Bowl. And Nico, man, like this kid's going to be fun when he gets his chance. I was kind of interested to see like that pocket presence. Is he rolling out when he doesn't have to do, kind of doing the thing that we criticized Bo Nix for doing early in his career? Or does he kind of have that right sort of mental clock to be able to do that when he needs to? And he can make those throws on the run. You see the 5-star ability with him. I don't think he's going to be the starter in the early part of this season unless an injury happens or unless Joe Milton is just looking like the same guy that we saw 2 years ago. But I do think that Tennessee fans came away pretty encouraged from what they saw at the quarterback position this weekend.
You're looking for football coverage, SEC style, go to SaturdayDownSouth.com. That's where we find Connor O'Gara's work. We appreciate you joining us, Connor.
Anytime, man. Appreciate it.
He is Connor O'Gara of Saturday Down South. Lots of spring ball over the weekend and some more to come this weekend. It's just the spring games are fun for the football heads, and you get to see a team that you hadn't seen since bowl game in January or December, and kind of see some new faces here and there with early enrollees and new coaches, and kind of see what you can, but it's a glorified practice, and we'll see what LSU's looks like over the weekend. There was a little comment that Lane Kiffin made after the Grove Bowl that was directed at Texas A&M. We'll talk about that and take it or leave it at the end of this hour. When we come back, LSU basketball lost someone to the transfer portal earlier this week and gained one over the weekend, so we'll talk about that next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
This is Hunt Palmer. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
The world's leaders in obesity research, obesity medicine, and obesity science are right here.
We're doing something that no one's ever done or trying to answer a question that no one's ever asked before.
Pennington is a real jewel when it comes to research.
We are finding the solutions to the world's worst chronic disease, which is obesity. Louisiana needs Pennington Biomedical.
Clash of the Cooks Jambalaya Showdown is back.
Join us on Saturday, April 22nd
at the Ochsner Medical Complex at The Grove. We've got cooking teams of pros and joes serving up their best jambalaya and Cajun Creole dishes, all while helping raise dough for local families battling cancer. Bring the whole family for great food, live tunes, and good times. Clash of the Cooks Jambalaya Showdown, presented by Ochsner.
Saturday, April 22nd at lunchtime. Help us paddle it forward. For tickets and more information, go to clashofthecooks.com.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's that time again. It's heating up. Your boat's getting ready to come out and spend all summer on the water. It's time to take your boat to the next level with front-to-back boat service, where if you want an incredible custom speaker install, it's going to blow people away in the water, that's there for you. You want an HD sonar where you can see the fish under the water before you cast, beat all your friends, that's there for you at front-to-back boat service. So don't put it off. We got the parts in right now. Get them now before they go back on back order. Front-to-back boat service.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Hi, I'm Brandon Landry, founder and CEO of Water.
Hi, my name is Dr. Craig Green.
This is Ryan Terrio with HUDCORoofing.com.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. No matter how big your commercial roofing job, HUDCO can help.
My patients come to me because they trust that I can get the job done at a high level. Ryan Terrio and Richard Tilley have the same level of trust when it comes to roofing.
If you have a roofing issue, call HUDCO Roofing.
Give us a call, 364-1007, and we'll come to your house and give you a free inspection.
Join me, Jimmy Ott, and Charles Hannegriff. We're on campus at the Cook Hotel and Conference Center at LSU for the Monday evening edition of Game Time. It's Game Time, 6 to 8 p.m. Monday on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Basketball transfer portal continues to churn. Unless you had one player step out, Cam Hayes, over the weekend, and one player step in, Will Baker, over the weekend. Cam Hayes, of course, transferred in from North Carolina State. He will be leaving the program. When LSU signed Cam Hayes, I looked up and said, okay, this is a guy who's played a lot of basketball in the ACC. He's been pretty average shooter and scorer, a pretty low efficiency player, but certainly veteran, certainly a guy that can help you, a good athlete. And if you bring Cam Hayes in as kind of your rotational piece, he's 7th or 8th on the squad, he can help you. If you ask him to be your primary ball handler, which LSU did the majority of the year, that's probably one step above where he needs to be. And he was about what he was at NC State. He was at LSU. And as I said multiple times after LSU season ended, they've got to be more productive and more efficient at guard. And that's the direction they're heading. They brought in Jordan Wright, brought in Jalen Cook. And so Cam Hayes moving on, and we'll see where he lands. It'll be a second transfer. I think everyone feels like they can get a waiver to go wherever they want. So he'll kind of move on. The transfer that LSU brought in is an interesting one. His name's Will Baker from Nevada. And he is a grad student, 5th-year player. He's a 7-footer who originally from Austin, Texas. He was a top 30 player in his signing class back in 2019 and went to Texas and then moved on after a couple of years at Texas to Nevada, where he kind of blossomed into a starter and a third-team All-League player on an NCAA tournament team at Nevada. Last year, he was a 13.5 point per game scorer. He grabbed 5 rebounds per game as well. Baker is a 7-foot post player, and his strength is his skill. He is a very polished and very good offensive player. He shot over 60% from 2-point range. He stepped out and shot 36% from 3. He is an 84% free throw shooter. He is a lefty, and he's got every move you could want offensively. He can step out and shoot it. He can post. He can go to the jump hook. He can score putting it on the floor. He can knock down the elbow jump shot. Like, he is a polished scoring player and a guy that will be a good SEC scorer. His shortcomings are he's not a great athlete, and he's not a great defender. He really struggled defensively, especially in the pick and roll game, out on the perimeter because he's not a super athlete. So LSU has brought in a number of guys in the transfer portal, actually 3 guys in the transfer portal, that are skilled offensive players. Jordan Wright is a skilled offensive player. He's not a great athlete. Jalen Cook is a skilled offensive player. He's a little bit undersized. And Will Baker is a very skilled offensive player who may struggle with the space and kind of the pace of SEC play defensively. And so it's an ad that's going to make LSU a much better offensive team. He's going to fill the KJ Williams role. He's going to be a stretch big. He's going to play in ball screen stuff at the top of the key. He's going to pick and pop. He's going to pick and roll. He's going to get on the glass. He's going to knock down some shots. He's probably going to score in double figures in SEC play. He's good enough to do that. He's old enough to do that. He's polished enough to do that. The concern is, what does he give you on the defensive end? I don't know. But this is a guy who is going to start for LSU, I believe, and is going to be one of their leading scorers. So it's a good ad, and a guy that I think will certainly help offensively. And LSU, at this point, when I look at their roster, I see a team that should be able to score. LSU struggled so often this past year trying to score any other way besides KJ Williams. You had some freshmen out there that weren't polished scorers. You had a struggling Adam Miller at times shooting the basketball. Your point guard play left a lot to be desired, and because of that, you kind of went into some droughts. Those are going to be few and far between. Jalen Cook can get his own shot. Jalen Cook shoots a 3 well. and you added a 7-footer here that has shot 40% from the three-point line in a season a couple of years ago. So that's a floor spacer. That's a guy that's going to pull bigs away from the basket, and that's the guy that's going to get you some buckets. So I think what Matt McMahon is doing right now is good. You're adding quality players. I need, at some point now in the transfer portal, for LSU to nab a wing that is a good defender. You're going to need, at some point here, a guy that's 6'5", that can play some serious defense. Because Baker's shot blocking numbers are almost startling for a 7-footer. When you look at last year, this is a guy that blocked 9 shots. He's 7 feet tall. He blocked 9 shots for the year. That's hard to do. After January the 23rd, he had 1 block. How many games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 games, 1 block for a 7-footer. You get the picture that I'm painting here? This is a good ad, but you need rim protection, which hopefully you're going to get a little bit from Baker, but you need to get it from Jalen Reed. He's going to have to help you protect the rim a little bit. He's big, he's long, he's athletic. You're going to need that from him. And you need perimeter defense. You need somebody to go out there and help you, because Wright's a pretty average defender and Cook's undersized. So there are your needs. You've addressed scoring. You've addressed guard play offensively in your efficiency. You need to go get a 6'5" guy that can sit down and guard somebody. And maybe Tyrell Ward is that. Maybe he develops into that. I didn't see a ton of it in his first year, but maybe he develops into that. That's what I think LSU desperately needs, and they've still got 3 spots to play with, I think, so they've got time and room to do so. But I think a nice ad here with Will Baker. I feel like sometimes when I deliver a segment and I look back as I'm talking, I'm going, did that come off right? I think Baker's a good player, and I'm glad they got him. 7-footer is great to have, and especially one that can score the way that Baker can. But you still have some shortcomings on the roster, and you need to try to address those in the transfer portal. That's what you got to do. So that's the plan here for Matt McMahon as they continue to dive into the transfer portal. We'll take a time out. When we come back, got some updates from Jay Johnson on some guys as far as injuries go with Gavin Dugas and with Paxton Kling, with Nate Ackenhausen. We'll get to some of that. And Jalen Hurts signed a rather lucrative contract. We'll talk about that and kind of relate it back to where the Saints are with Derek Carr. That's all coming up next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
It's time for the NBA playoffs, and you can get in on the action right from the first tip with FanDuel. Right now, all customers get a no-sweat same-game parlay every weekend when you bet the NBA playoffs. That's right. Just place a 3+ leg same-game parlay or same-game parlay plus on any NBA playoff game, and you'll get bonus bets back if you don't win. There are great promotions every day over on FanDuel. It's safe, it's secure, and the best part, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/1045ESPN and get a no-sweat same-game parlay every weekend of the NBA playoffs. That's FanDuel.com/1045ESPN. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 and present in Louisiana. Bonus issues is knowledgeable bonus bet that expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. If you or somebody who has a gambling problem wants help, call 1-877-770-STOP.
Our listeners fire up their opinions on the JimsFirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the JimsFirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
For over a century, local broadcasting has evolved with the needs of the community. We move past the stigmas of opinion journalism and bring the most relevant news online, on air, and on the go. You have trusted us with your news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Trust us to keep moving with you. Text TB to 52886 and tell Congress local broadcasting is here to stay.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all of that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
Clash of the Cooks Jambalaya Showdown is back.
Join us on Saturday, April 22nd.
At the Ochsner Medical Complex at the Grove. We've got cooking teams of pros and Joes serving up their best jambalaya and Cajun Creole dishes, all while helping raise dough for local families battling cancer. Bring the whole family for great food, live tunes, and good times. Clash of the Cooks Jambalaya Showdown, presented by Ochsner.
Saturday, April 22nd at lunchtime. Help us paddle it forward. For tickets and more information, go to clashofthecooks.com.
All right, let's say ah.
Where'd my spotlight go?
Super weird.
On Tuesdays, Off the Bench. One day closer to the LSU spring game. We'll continue to count you down. Plus, baseball getting ready for some midweek action, as well as a little more chill weekend series. Off the Bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
I want to remind you that 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge and the Baton Rouge Clinic bring you the Dreams Come True Radiothon. Dreams Come True is an organization designed to help grant dreams for children with life-threatening illnesses and their families. Dreams Come True Radiothon presented today by the Baton Rouge Men's Clinic, Patient Plus, and Louisiana Federal Land Bank. You can donate today at 1045ESPN.com. And a reminder, every $5 donated is an entry into our raffle, and there are some great raffle items available: an Aaron Austinola autographed bat, ball, and picture, a Justin Jefferson autographed LSU helmet, Justin and Jamar Chase framed wall print, 3 days and 2 nights at the CMA Music Festival in Nashville, Friday, June 9th through Sunday, June 11th. They got a concert ticket package to see Thomas Rhett, Shinedown, Zach Bryan, Depeche Mode, Guns N' Roses, and Hardy. So if you go to 1045ESPN.com and just donate $5, you're in the raffle to win all of those things, which is great. And it's also a great cause. The coolest thing that we do over here at Guarantee is partner with Dreams Come True to try to make as many dreams come true for children right here in the state of Louisiana as we possibly can. So if you do have the means, we certainly appreciate going to 1045ESPN.com and donating. We're having just an amazing amount of success with listener donations. Y'all have just been so gracious, and we're so appreciated here at Guarantee Media that y'all have done that all month long. We still got half the month to go, so we're hoping to grant as many dreams as we possibly can. Jay Johnson met with the media earlier today and gave some updates and some not so updates on injuries. When you've got as many as they have, it can be a little bit frustrating trying to keep up with all of them. And so Jay is guarded with injuries. That's what I tell a lot of people. That entire staff over there is just very, very protective of injury information. It just doesn't get out a ton. But Jay said that he hopes Nate Ackenhausen and Javen Coleman can pitch very soon, but he's not sure about the timeline. The quote that was given was, "There's a legit chance Javen could pitch this year." He was up and warming this weekend. I wasn't there at the press conference, so I don't know if he elaborated on that at all or if somebody followed up on that. But, like, if Javen Coleman doesn't pitch this year, I'll be a little bit shocked. He was warming up. It's April 17th. So I think you will see Javen Coleman probably sooner rather than later. And the deal here is I have been very cautious with the impact that I think Javen Coleman can have on this team. Everyone's kind of been saying since the season started, well, when Coleman gets back. And I'm cautious with that because when you have a guy who's coming off Tommy John and hasn't pitched competitively in 15 months, asking him to just jump into the fire and be productive is a really tough ask and really just setting yourself up for disappointment. However, if it's April 17th and we're still 6 weeks away from regional play, he's got time. If he can come back this weekend or this midweek and pitch, 6 weeks is enough time to get up to speed. 2 weeks, that's going to be tough. 6, I feel like it's reasonable now to mention Javen Coleman in with the bullpen pieces that you have. I have not done that yet. Like, that has not been where my lane has been. I've been saying anything he gives you is gravy, anything he gives you is gravy, anything he gives you is gravy, but you look up and all of a sudden it's 6 weeks from the end of the season and he has a chance to start pitching. I think it's reasonable to hope that he can give you something, which I have not done. Look, as far as Ackenhausen goes, that one's odd to me. Obviously, the hamstring injury was a little bit more significant than we thought. Last time we saw him was against Tennessee. He's gotten one out in over a month, so hopefully he can come back, and that's what Jay Johnson said. He's still not giving any updates on Chase Shores or Garrett Edwards. I've kind of mentioned this a couple of times. Like, I don't know anything about those two guys and what the significance of their injury is. I'm just telling you, I'm not expecting to see him the rest of the year. Like, that's where I am on it. When you see guys react the way they did, and you see Shores with the compression sleeve, you see guys not picking up a ball, it just doesn't feel good to me. So I think people will continue to ask Jay about it, but I don't think you're going to get much information on it. Couple other things from Jay Johnson's press conference today. Gavin Dugas is going to take ground balls today, and we'll just see. It's going to be a pain tolerance deal. As Jay said, they kind of dodged one there. There's no structural damage to Dugas' shoulder. It's very, I think, similar to what Cade Doty did last year in the last regular season game against last regular season weekend against Vanderbilt when he dislocated his shoulder and they kind of popped it right back in. Kind of same type deal with Dugas, and it's just going to be a pain tolerance deal. I've talked to people that have done this in the past that it just kind of hurts, and you got to kind of tough through it. And Gavin's tough as nails, so hopefully back this week, but shouldn't be more than a week and a half, 2 weeks at the longest, and he should be back and able to play, which would be a very, very good thing. I thought it was interesting to hear Jay talk about teams walking Dylan Cruz, and he said, look, this is a quote from Jay, I'm not sure I would pitch to him either. There are no right answers, really. He's the best college baseball player in a while, and that's the case. I mean, you look up right now, and I've got the stats on Cruz. He's hitting 500. He's played in 35 games. He's hitting 500 through 35 games. His on-base percentage is .648. He's getting on base 65% of the time. And it's just going to be up to Tommy White to deal with that. And I gave you the stats back in the first segment when I was talking baseball. This team, Tommy White hitting behind Cruz, was the SEC Player of the Week this week. Like, that's what you're choosing to deal with if you put Cruz on base. That's a good spot. And Beloso's going to have to keep swinging it if they put him back there behind Tommy White, because you got to force teams to pitch to these guys. And right now they kind of have to. And the guy that's kind of snuck up on everybody is Jordan Thompson. And you had a great quote earlier today from Jay with the media. He said he's one of the best shortstops in the country right now. He was huge last year with clutch hitting, and now he's one of the best players in the country. People don't talk about him because we have the actual best player in the country as well as Tommy White, which is a funny thing to say. It's like, yeah, I mean, people aren't really talking about him because we've got the best player in the country and Tommy White. But, hey, he's pretty good, and I would agree. Thompson's really swung the bat well, and he's playing good defense. It hasn't been as good as it was early in the year, but he's playing good defense. LSU as a whole has kind of slipped over the last 2 weeks defensively. They got to get that figured out and righted pretty quickly. And then the last thing from Jay Johnson today was about Thatcher Hurd, and Jay said, I think we're on our way to getting him back. So we're going to get there. He's going to be pitching a lot, and I trust when he's out there. And as a coach, I look at it differently than all of you do, and I feel good about where he's at. And he's right. They need him. I mean, they got to have some help from Thatcher Hurd. If you go back to the second segment of today's show, if you go catch that on demand, wherever you listen to your audio, I talked about LSU's pitching situation and what they've got to get. They've got to get outside of Skeens, and right now I would group Collins into the group that's throwing it great, and I'm totally confident. They've got to find 3 or 4 more guys. And Hurd's got the ability to be that. He's got to throw strikes, and he's got to finish guys off when he gets ahead and counts. But they need him, and sounds like Jay feels good about where they're headed with Thatcher Hurd, so I guess that remains to be seen. Switch gears here briefly and talk some NFL. Jalen Hurts signed a mega deal earlier today. The contract extension is going to keep him in Philadelphia through the 2028 season. The contract is worth $255 million over 5 years, and $179 million of it is guaranteed. You see Hurts sign this contract, you're going to see Herbert and Burrow sign contract extensions here in the near future, and that's going to reset the market for starting quarterbacks in the NFL. One of my beefs with the Derek Carr signing that the Saints made was like, man, you're going to spend $100 million on an average quarterback? That's a chunk of your salary cap. But I still had to understand, and do understand, but now you're starting to actually see it materialize, that by the time this Carr contract gets into years 2 and 3, like, he's going to be a cheap quarterback. That's just the way it is. You're going to have monster contracts from Mahomes and Hurts and the guys I just mentioned, Burrow and Herbert and Josh Allen. Like, these guys are going to be making an astronomical amount of money. And then you'll look at Derek Carr's contracts and you go, okay, 4 years, $100 million guaranteed, got the $28 million signing bonus. Like, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. And I still wasn't for it because I don't know that Carr's a great player, and the Saints roster has holes such that I think that signing Carr makes them more difficult to accomplish. But it's not as egregious when you start to look at the numbers that some of these quarterbacks are going to start pulling in over the next couple of years. So Derek Carr, 4 years, $100 million guaranteed. You'll be in the bottom half of the league in terms of quarterback salary. And quite frankly, that's where the Saints need to be right now because they got to go fill a lot of different holes in that roster. And we'll see what they kind of decide to do with their draft situation and whether or not they want to add to that quarterback room or whether they're comfortable going into it with Jameis Carr and I guess Taysom on the other end of that. But this was the first step towards the Carr contract not looking quite as bloated. It will be cheap as this thing kind of moves forward. So Jalen Hurts, again, signs a deal in Philly, $255 million over 5 years, $179 million guaranteed. He's the highest paid player in the history of the league. If you would have told me when the Eagles drafted him in the second round that Jalen Hurts would become the highest paid player in the history of the NFL, probably would not have believed that, quite frankly. But here we are. And the question is, can he stay healthy? He did not last year in the middle of the season. They got him back and they made the run, but looking at a guy that is going to run a lot and whether or not they can keep him healthy, that'll be the key to what the Eagles do. But he's a great story. No matter how you feel about him, he's a great story, having kind of lost his job in Tuscaloosa and then coming back to save that SC championship game and going to Oklahoma and doing things he did there and becoming a second-round pick and kind of thought he was blocked by Carson Wentz, and then that falls apart and they toss him in there, and all of a sudden he's playing an MVP clip and playing on the best team in the NFC, and now he's been handsomely rewarded for that with $179 million guaranteed dollars. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be a really good player during this contract. I think the league's not going to – quarterbacks are playing like Jalen Hurts plays now. That's a common thing. Guys they're running. They're moving. Josh Allen's all over the place, moving around, running, physical, tough. That's what Jalen Hurts is, and I thought when they drafted him was a terrible draft pick. I was like, why would you take that guy? There's no chance that's going to work in the NFL. Here we are, highest paid player in the league, and it sure does work, and he's going to be one of the favorites to win the MVP next year because he's playing at that good a level. That's a really good team they've got around him in Philly. So Jalen Hurts, rich dude. Rich dude. We'll take one more timeout, come back, and we will close it up. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Rally Cap Brewing. It's handmade for the home team right here in Baton Rouge. The tap room over there at Rally Cap, just off Segan Lane, is such an awesome place to go hang out. They got 14 beers on tap. They got your canned beers as well. It's a great place to watch a game. They got 8 TVs all over the place. They're always playing baseball over there. Rally Cap. All their beers are kind of baseball named. We got the First Pitch up here. Got the Windy Peppercorn up there. Love in a Pickle as well. That's a good one. The Ballpark Breakfast is excellent as well. And it's family and pet friendly. So head on over there and watch the game. Enjoy delicious Rally Cap beer. And if you want to go do a tour, they would love to have you. And they do them Wednesday through Friday at 5 o'clock. And they also do them on Saturdays at 1 o'clock over there at Rally Cap. You've got to purchase a ticket in advance at rallycap.com, but it's really, really cool. We walked through a couple of weeks ago. Kevin, the owner over there, walked us around, showed us the entire process. And if you've never done it, it's a really, really cool thing to do. So go to rallycap.brewing.com and buy your tickets and visit their tap room over there on Seagate. Rally Cap Brewing. It's handmade for the home team.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's that time again. It's heating up. Your boat's getting ready to come out and spend all summer on the water. It's time to take your boat to the next level with front-to-back boat service, where if you want an incredible custom speaker install, it's going to blow people away in the water, that's there for you. You want an HD sonar where you can see the fish under the water before you cast, beat all your friends, that's there for you at front-to-back boat service. So don't put it off. We got the parts in right now. Get them now before they go back on back order. Front-to-back boat service.
Not only did she tell us, but this young lady, stand up. And this young lady,
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Hi, I'm Brandon Landry, founder and CEO of Walker.
Hi, my name is Dr. Craig Green.
This is Ryan Terrio with HUDCORoofing.com.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. No matter how big your commercial roofing job, HUDCO can help.
My patients come to me because they trust that I can get the job done at a high level. Ryan Terrio and Richard Tilley have the same level of trust when it comes to roofing.
If you have a roofing issue, call HUDCO Roofing.
Give us a call, 364-1007, and we'll come to your house and give you a free inspection.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all of that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood.
Hannegriff join us for the Tuesday edition of Hanny Time. Dwayne Colucci joins us from Las Vegas. The NBA playoffs continue and the NHL playoffs are underway. Hanny Time, noon weekdays, 104.5, ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Join us on Thursday, April 27th. That's next Thursday at 7 p.m. for the Rouse's ESPN Draft Party, live from Don Juan's Cigar Bar and exclusively on the 104.5 ESPN YouTube channel. Our whole team's going to be there to break down the picks, trades, and moves inside one of the biggest nights in sports. So come out to the Rouse's ESPN Draft Party. April 27th at 7 p.m. live from Don Juan Cigar Bar, or you can watch on the 104.5 ESPN YouTube channel. Always one of the more fun things that we do here at 104.5 ESPN is hang out, get some beverages, watch the draft, stream it on YouTube, take your chats, interaction. Always a lot of fun. So next Thursday, going out to Don Juan and hang with us. Tomorrow's show should be a lot of fun. Very much looking forward to it. We always have Glenn West and Sharif Ishak on. We will do that. We'll talk Tigers with Glenn. We'll talk Pels and Saints with Sharif. And excited to have Steve Worthy on the show. He's the executive director of the Zurich Classic, so we'll have Steve on. For those of you planning on going out to the event down in New Orleans this week, we'll get you some talking points there and a preview. I saw some interesting teams that are playing this weekend. For those that missed it, John Daly and David Duval are playing in the Zurich Classic this week. If you want to see them, might advise catching them on Thursday and Friday. Not sure they'll be around for the weekend, but should be an entertaining team nonetheless. Matt Fitzpatrick, winner from this past week, is playing with his brother in the tournament as well. Kind of headlining the event is going to be Colin Morikawa and Max Homa. So I'm planning on going out there on Saturday to watch some golf. Very much looking forward to that. All right, Jacob Beck, let's play some Take It or Leave It.
All right. Starting off, when talking about transfer wide receiver Chris Marshall, Lane Kiffin said, instead of a program where you huddle and wait 35 seconds to snap it, we've got to get him to get the ball to the official. We've got to teach him to do things our way. Shot at A&M, take it or leave it.
I mean, you got to take it. That's
I'll take
just a total shot at A&M right there. Of course, Chris Marshall was a 5-star receiver that went to College Station, Texas A&M, got in a little bit of trouble in his first year there and ended up transferring out and headed to Ole Miss. And, yeah, Lane was not happy during the Grove Bowl that Chris Marshall was kind of yucking it up a little bit and taking his time. That Ole Miss wants to snap it and go, so he takes a shot at Jimbo Fisher. The Kiffin-Fisher feud is just never going to die. Those two despise each other. They're always going to take shots. They're always going to say something. It's going to be more so Kiffin than Fisher, but generally Jimbo will respond when something happens, so that's humorous. And if we're going to take a storyline out of spring football, might as well take one that's funny.
Man, better feud, Kiffin and Jimbo or Jimbo and Saban?
That Jimbo and Saban was like the one big blow up, and then it's kind of water under the bridge. This one's like the gift that keeps on giving. They're always just gonna come back and find another little needle.
Yeah. All right, the Boston Marathon was today. Running a marathon, take it or leave it.
Oh God, I will be leaving that. Look, do I look like I'm about to run a marathon? That's just not gonna happen. I know some people that have. There's some people that are avid marathon runners. You will never, ever, under any circumstance, catching me run more than 27 miles at a time. It's an act of Congress for me to run 1 mile, quite frankly. My dad trained for a marathon one time and ran one just because he wanted to say he could do it. That's kudos to those who want to go out there and run a marathon. You're just not going to catch me doing it. No chance. No chance.
Matt Fitzpatrick said Sunday that outside of the majors, the RBC Heritage was the tourney he wanted to win most, and he said jokingly, I think I can retire now. Take it or leave it.
I mean, it's his thing, so I guess I'll take it. But for me, no. I mean, I'll say this. This is, and I said this last week as well, this is my favorite 3-week stretch of golf viewing outside of the Hawaii events because I just love primetime golf. I love the fact that the Hawaii events start at like 6 o'clock our time, and I can watch golf until like 10 at night. That's great. But this week where they go from Augusta, where I have been and obviously know the holes because it's the Masters, and a lot of people that will follow golf know the holes at the Augusta. But then you got Harbortown, which is the Heritage this past week, and then you got the Zurich this week. I know all 3 courses. I've played them all. I played Harbortown a couple of years ago on a big guys trip, and then I've played TPC Louisiana a dozen or so times with buddies down there in New Orleans. So just in terms of golf viewership, I know the holes, I know the shots for all 3 of these weeks, which is very, very cool. But still, I think if you're Matt Fitzpatrick, you might want to win like the Players outside the major. That would be a pretty lucrative payday as well. I think Riviera is an incredible event you might want to look into. And winning at Pebble is obviously very cool. I think the Heritage is what it is. I love watching because I've played the course, but apparently the Fitzpatrick spent a lot of time at Hilton Head growing up. They spent a lot of vacation trips there, and he really likes that course and got it done. Beat Jordan Spieth in the playoff. I was actually watching on the plane yesterday when he won the playoff. So good for him. If that's the one he wants to win, he's got it. I just think there are probably some other events that I might want to check off the list first. But he did win the U.S. Open, so good on Matt Fitzpatrick.
That's all.
I think there was one more on there, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Couldn't see it. Delta Airlines, take it or leave it.
I'll take it. I had a delightful trip on Delta. The flight attendants were great with the little guy. They had live TV on the headrest, which is not, on every single flight on every single airline. I was able to watch the golf tournament for a lot of the time. I was hoping some SEC baseball would be on ESPN or ESPN2. They had softball on, so but I was hoping there was some baseball. But I got to watch the golf tournament for like 2.5 hours in the air yesterday, which was a great way to juggle the kid while he's crawling all over the place and eating every puff in sight. You could watch a little golf. I liked it. I'm not a person who has strong opinions on an airline. Growing up, like, we flew American almost all the time because you just hopped over to Dallas from Shreveport. It was like a 38-minute flight, and then you could go wherever you wanted from Dallas, so that's kind of what we usually did. But I've flown a lot of Southwest out of New Orleans. I've flown United, has a direct flight to Chicago that I've taken a lot of Friday mornings to go watch Cubs games at 1:20. I even flew Spirit last year because it was the best time for me. So I don't have a strong airline allegiance like most do, and I don't really travel at all for work, so I don't really care. But I had a delightful time on Delta, so shout out to Delta Airlines. It was good time up in the skies, and they got us where we were supposed to be for the most part on time. We had a little delay on Thursday, but no big deal. I was chasing Myers around the New Orleans airport and watching LSU hit multiple grand slams, which was fine with me.
It's actually funny you mentioned that, the flight and everything, because I saw this on Twitter earlier. Anthony Bass, a pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays, he tweeted yesterday about, on a flight on United, that the flight attendant asked his wife to pick up popcorn from the ground that the kids had, I guess, thrown on the ground. And he was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Well,
and
let me just tell you, they needed an entire janitorial crew to come in there after we were done yesterday. I mean, there's nothing that my son can do except eat. That's the only thing that will keep his attention for more than 8 seconds. So we're shoveling these little veggie straws, puffs, these mango bites. He had an entire bag of mango bites on the flight yesterday, and he was eating a granola bar that's all over the floor. I mean, we were on the back of the plane. When I got up, I looked down, and I was like, it looks like an entire cafeteria was eating in here, but it got him home. So we made it happen, and nobody told us to pick anything up. So they appreciate that, Delta. That's very big of you. So we appreciate that. All right, that's it for Take It or Leave It here on this Monday. Hope your work week is off to a good start. If you missed any of the show, you can always catch it on demand. 1045ESPN.com is where all our audio is archived each and every day. Of course, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google, wherever you get your podcasts, and YouTube each and every day. We appreciate if you'll subscribe to the channel, like, rate, review, all that good stuff helps us get our content in front of as many eyes and ears as possible. And that's the ultimate goal here. Spent the first 30 minutes of the show talking about LSU and Kentucky. Tigers take 2 of 3. Gave you an SEC baseball weekend recap and kind of where the standings sit in the Southeastern Conference at 1:30. Gave you my review of Dodger Stadium. Big, scenic, old, not all that comfortable, but I enjoyed my time there until the Dodgers walked the Cubs off. Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South in hour number 2. Some LSU basketball news as well. Jimmy Ott's Game Time coming at you tonight from 6 to 8. Musso's got AFR. He's coming up next. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place, 1 to 3 weekdays on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Each year, Guarantee Media hosts a radiothon to benefit Dreams Come True, the local organization that grants dreams to Louisiana kids suffering life-threatening illnesses and their families. We've interviewed these incredible kids, and their stories warm our hearts. And none of it would be possible without your help.